A speech by Archbishop Dr. Chidebere Anelechi Obu, President of African Diaspora Union, AFRIDU, and Global Chairman of International Gathering for Peace and Human Rights, on the United Nations International Human Rights Day held in the Village of Peace, Dimona, Israel. To the Committee for the United Nations International Human Rights Day and all the participants present in Dimona, Israel, and across the globe via Zoom celebrating the United Nations International Human Rights Day, I thank you for the privilege and opportunity to present a speech on this occasion. I am presenting this speech with a mixed feelings, having thought over what I think is human rights and whether the Human Rights Day is worth celebrating, putting into consideration the enormous and horrendous human rights abuses being perpetrated by those who are supposed to be the protectors of human rights. Human rights are the inalienable rights of every citizen that are protected by the rule of law. Hence, the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights that produced the 30 basic human rights in 1948. And of course, championed by the 5 major powers that won the World War II: Britain, China, France, the Soviet Union, and the United States. The manipulative events of today, exposed by the COVID-19 and its variants, that includes the Omicron and the forced vaccines and forced deportations of persons who ought to be citizens by birth in Israel and other countries, with forceful closures of borders, has exposed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948 to be a lie. The inequality, discrimination, invasion of privacy, physical and mental torture, unfair detainment, lack of freedom of movement, lack of freedom of expression, denial of the right of public assembly, and many other things explains we don't have a fair and free world, rather total slavery in oppression. A society cannot be fair if there is existence of large-scale inequality. The African Diaspora Union, AFRIDU, is worried at the level of inequality that Africans, Caribbean, and other third world countries are considered ineligible to produce vaccines or any other preventive medication for the COVID-19. Hence, they are reduced to be dignified slaves. It is very shocking and embarrassing to discover that the protector has become the perpetrator of evil. Let me briefly introduce our organization and what we stand for. The African Diaspora Union, AFRIDU, is a civil society union and Pan-Africanist organization acting as the umbrella body of all African diaspora organizations in Africa, with a view to integrate Africans into the African nations where they reside in with the spirit of brotherhood. Unquote. Ubuntu. We seek the spirit of recognition, justice, and development for all Africans, and the restoration of the rights and the dignity of African people through the removal of all obstacles that prevent their equal enjoyment of all human rights, economic, and social justice. AFRIDU is uniquely found in faith in the people of African continent. Through our individual and collective efforts and enabled by a capable state, The Africans resident in Africa hold the power to make our continental shining beacon for the world. AfriDo celebrates diversity and recognizes the right of each individual to be who they want to be, free from domination and brutalization by others. The above created room for their partnership with the International Gathering for Peace and Human Rights. International Gathering for Peace and Human Rights, as a conglomerate of peace and human rights organizations, has its objective to educate the world, including Africans, African descendants and non-Africans, of their inalienable rights, as declared by the 1948 United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the need for world peace, as societies and nations cannot progress or prosper where there is no peace, and there cannot be a proper peace in a society where human rights does not exist. The gathering, which is born out of our conviction as a solution to mental empowerment, self-discovery, networking, and learning something that is not contained in the colleges and the university syllabuses. Hence, it gives opportunities to the less privileged society, those who could not get such opportunity, the poor, the less advanced, the ignorant, the uninformed, and the misinformed Africans and African descendants, who seems to be the most backward peoples in terms of peace and human rights. To teach human rights, the story of slavery, bondage, and inhumanity need to be told. In the universe today, people enjoy some freedoms and rights because individuals fought for it, and some laid down their lives for it. Many, including Africans and African descendants, do not realize the sacrifice made by some individuals for them to enjoy certain freedoms today, and for them to be able to exercise their fundamental human rights. Therefore, it becomes an abomination to fold our arms and watch the freedom from slavery and colonization fought and won by our fathers to be thrown into the waste paper basket. I encourage all my brothers and sisters of faith and the village of peace in Dimona, Israel, to hold fast to their belief in freedom. Thank you, and God bless you.